we have a true couple of experts on Lincoln Highway that live right among us that help us all the time with it. That's all I'm going to say. Please welcome Joyce Ausberger.
I get to start first, so Bob can sit there and worry about his part. Am I on here? You hear that? Okay. First of all, we put up this map to show you the 13 states that the Lincoln Highway goes through. And the one that I forgot to put an extra picture about is West Virginia, so I wore my West Virginia shirt. And there's a teapot there. There's about 4 miles of the Lincoln Highway in West Virginia. But they have a really huge teapot that everybody gets excited about. First of all, I'm going to say in the beginning, the 13 states that came together were prompted by Carl Fisher, who wanted to sell Presto lights. He invented Presto lights for automobiles. Then he had other friends that had produced like some type of an automobile, and they said, we got to get a road that they won't get stuck on. So he called it Out of the Mud series of 13 states to go through to promote going from mud to hard surface road. So anyway, he had another good friend who happened to sell cars, and he was the Packard person, Henry Joy. And Henry Joy was a lifesaver for Carl Fisher, because he was the one that had somebody else with him to help promote getting the 13 states to organize. And if you'll look up there, there's a little drop down that goes down to Denver. There were several states that said, we want you to go to this town, but not this town, and up and down they went. So there's all kinds of postcards that shows you the Lincoln Highway in Colorado. It didn't go down to Denver. It did go through Fort Morgan and still does today. But it was interesting how they got started saying, all right, I want it in my state. The first transcontinental road then became a lot of roads in Iowa and a lot of roads all over the United States. The one that we are most familiar with are the north-south roads, the Jefferson Highway, that's where I came from, the Southern Highway, Highway 69, the Dixie Highway, where we came from just recently. They kept promoting the Dixie Highway and Route 66. I don't remember how many named roads, there were, and they changed all those named roads. I think in 1926, they said, we're going to forget the names of all these roads, and we're going to start numbering. And that's when they decided to number the roads instead of all the really nice Lincoln Highway, Jefferson Highway, Dixie Highway. And it was really fun then to decide how they were going to route them. All right, Highway 30, if you follow going west, becomes Highway 40 and 50. I used to have friends say, oh, I was just on the Lincoln Highway up in Oregon. That's Highway 30, and they purposely changed that for some reason so that people would not think of all the numbers as the old named highways. So no, Highway 30 goes to Oregon, but it's not Lincoln Highway. Henry Osterman was also a friend of Henry Joy, and I don't think I brought anything to tell you what his automobile looked like, but I'll guarantee you it was a Packard, and it was red, white, and blue, and he went through all these states, I don't know how many times, probably 7 or 8 times, and he was promoted ahead of time, and he'd stop and he'd talk to all the people like Lovejoy on the Bean Herald here in Jefferson. And if you go back and look in the early 13, 14, 15 newspapers, it's nothing but promoting the Lincoln Highway to go through Greene County. So they had a lot of publicity, and Henry Osterman is famous, known for that. Unfortunately, he had a car wreck outside of Tama, Iowa, and died. But there's a section outside of Chicago, which we didn't go to because they didn't want to drive in the Chicago area. It's called the Ideal Section, and there is a memorial to Henry Osterman there. And at that Ideal Section, it was how they would expect roads to look in the future. Once they got them paved, which was a big deal, they hope to have 4 lanes with lights and flowers along the side. And so that's called the ideal section, clear back in the teens, and they figured this out. Anyway, I'm going to leave Henry Osterman. And the local newspapers and the Lincoln Highway markers were the last thing to promote the Lincoln Highway. This replica of a marker was set up in 1928. And it was the last thing that the Lincoln Highway Association did, and they closed their doors. There were, before maps, they had guidebooks. This is a 1915 guidebook, and it told you how many miles from one town to another town. I should have marked where it tells you how to go from Jefferson to, say, Ogden. But each town, it named each town that you go through on the Lincoln Highway. And in Iowa, let's see, there's 3,385 miles across the United States. In Iowa, it's 300 and some miles. But it tells you mile by mile how to get there to the next town. So these books were fun too. This was a replica done. We've got 3 originals. I didn't bring you the one that dog chewed on. This one is a 1920, and this is the last book that they put out. And this was after they were completely done, and it was done in 1935. All of the things that you want to look up on the Lincoln Highway that Bob and I don't get told. We have an archive at the University of Michigan up in next to Ypsilanti. But it's there are people constantly going to that area because they put a lot of information on their website. Any pictures you want, people stuck in the mud, they have several from every state. I wanted to show you, this was also before they started painting poles. They painted poles first, and then they put up these porcelain signs. This came from a farmer in Boone County after we got organized we started the state, we thought, Lincoln Highway Association, and then we were convinced from Greg Friendswine, which you'll see a picture of. He said, no, you gotta do national, don't do what Route 66 did, that was a big mistake. So anyway, when he found out we were going to become a national organization, he donated this to us. It was on a fence post by his farm in Boone County originally. And then, as we went across the state, we kept finding people that knew about the Lincoln Highway to become officers. Anyway, this guy he was a farmer, called himself a rancher, and he had this on one of these buildings, and he said, you know, we didn't have utility poles to go by my farm, so they put these flat porcelain signs. So he said, you and Bob seem like good people, I'll donate it to you. And then the Lincoln Highway Association, if you gave X amount of dollars, they would give you one of these emblems to stick somewhere in above the radiator, right, Bob? Okay. Again, these markers, well, we found 90 some in Iowa. When we first started out, we were told all the markers have been thrown away and behind the DOT building in Ames. All of a sudden, we said, no, we know that there's a marker right here in Jefferson on the Lincoln Highway. And then other people kept saying, let's try to find all the ones we can, and it's over 90 now. And every state has a book that tells where all of these markers are located in Iowa. So it's fun to look at this and go back, and there's a fellow from Minnesota who does this. He goes around with this book trying to find every one. Guess what? Most of them have been moved. The one in the courthouse is probably original. The other 2 we have in town have been moved. Now, we did not tear this out. After, again, we got organized, people kept sending us things. And this is an original medallion that was, someone tore out of the Lincoln Highway marker. You can see here we have it inserted, a fake one. But this is original, and we do have quite a few of the Lincoln Highway markers that still have their original medallions. Okay, that's the end of that. So they told you that Bob and I have been in every state, which is true. This is not taken too long ago because you can see 42nd and Broadway and underneath the Lincoln Highway. Well, that sign was taken down years ago, and finally, a friend who is on the Lincoln Highway Association, who has an office not very far from this corner, said, I'll make it my goal to get the Lincoln signed again, which he did. And you can bet we were excited, and there's 100 of us around there taking pictures. Going on into New Jersey, we had, Bob said, why'd you choose that one for New Jersey? Well, I chose it because I think it's really neat. It's a monument to Edison, and I don't know if you can tell or not, but there's actually a light bulb on top of that. Don't you think it's neat? Again, this represents Pennsylvania. Again, there are so many really neat things in Pennsylvania to say this is my favorite thing. But this was just, I don't know, just made me think, I'm so happy I live in the United States of America, and there's the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. I talked to someone at the conference in Dixon who was from Philadelphia, and he said, you know, I just, out of my own money, signed the Lincoln Highway to Philadelphia. He says, the people in Philadelphia don't think we need anything to help promote people to come. They don't care if the Lincoln Highway's there. They've got all of the Lincoln Highway, all of their museums. So he took it upon himself. If you go to Philadelphia, you'll see it signed with the Lincoln Highway. And this is another one, Bob says, why did you choose this one? Well, this happens to be something that the person who lived in that state, it's next to Bucyrus. Bucyrus is one of my favorite towns. He said, John Hopley, he became what they called them council persons. Instead of a director from each state, they called them council people. And he knew a lot of people with money, and he helped promote it really well in Ohio. Not only did he do this one, but there's a lot of brick Lincoln Highway markers in Ohio. More brick Lincoln Highway markers than any other state. I told you that I really like the Ideal section, and this is the monument that is there at that Ideal section for honoring Henry for all of his work that he did. Let's see. Franklin Grove, Franklin Grove, Illinois has they don't call it that anymore as of last week, I guess. It used to be the national headquarters. And this actually was related to a Lincoln. It always was called a Lincoln Valley, having nothing to do with the Lincoln Highway, but with Abraham Lincoln. I could tell a lot of stories about that building, but we'll push on. And I'd like to have said Jefferson is my favorite place, and the Lincoln Highway statue. I think there are only 3 statues of Abraham Lincoln that's on the Lincoln Highway across the United States. So we've got a unique statue here. But everybody in all the states voted at one time their most favorite thing on the Lincoln Highway was this bridge in Tama, Iowa. In Nebraska, this is called Kissinger's Station, which is a unique gas station. It's still open, it never closed. But behind Kissinger's Station is one paved mile of pavement, and the concrete people that tried to sell Hamilton's concrete, that's how you come in somewhere, they donated the concrete. And so that mile of concrete is behind Kissinger's Station. And it's really kept up well, and there's a sign that says the mile is still there. In Iowa, it was, the 1 mile of paving was put over near, between Cedar Rapids and Mount Vernon. And that used to have a marker there. I hope it's still there that shows that section of original pavement to show people they get stuck in the mud, of course, to get there, but then they would have that mile. This, again, is hard to tell how they happen to get all these. All of these say on the Lincoln Highway, and there are none of them on the Lincoln Highway. But because they wanted it, they put all these signs out on these postcards that say on the Lincoln Highway. Not. In Wyoming, I chose my favorite place because this is the summit, the highest place on the Lincoln Highway. And then the Henry Joy Monument's also there. It was actually moved closer to the summit because where it was off the road and people kept taking these markers away. So that's just west of Cheyenne. I don't know, 15 miles maybe. This is Bob's favorite place on the Lincoln Highway. And I told you I had Gregory Francois there, and he's the one that first started writing we didn't bring a form, did we? The Lincoln Highway form, their books, and each state that he started with Iowa. We got to know him because Bob and Rebecca Conard were out trying to decide what was eligible for the National Register in Greene County, and they found 9 things to put on the National Register. He found out from his brother in Glidden, we were there, and he was in Greene County immediately. He wanted to talk to us because he wanted to write those books. When we first started researching the Lincoln Highway in Wyoming, which is out in the middle of nowhere, Squaw Valley, I think, let's see, she was the daughter of the original Orr on Orr's Ranch, and she was really welcoming, very welcoming, and so was her husband, Rusty. And they had not only this building, but some of the other original buildings that had always been there. And travelers on the Lincoln Highway stopped there before they went out into this desert. And the Army convoy, which I have a little replica of, they spent some time there at Orr's Ranch also. And I said I liked Reno really well, and I thought this was really neat, the way they welcome people with the biggest little city in the world, which I understand is still there. And this is the Legion of Honor in San Francisco. This marker disappeared for a number of years, and they finally just got it back. So now I have to just say I'm done, and now the real expert will tell you about this part of the Lincoln Highway, Bobby Ausberger.
I suppose I should clear up. Is that on?
Yes.
Okay. Clear up a couple of things Joyce said. The main thing I want to mention is that at the beginning she showed that map of the Lincoln Highway going across the United States. And that was the Lincoln Highway. But it was not US 30 out west. And 30 went to Atlantic City. It did not go to New York City. And in 2026, the federal government changed the roads from names to numbers, like she said. And I don't know, we don't know why they didn't leave the Lincoln Highway intact. But the biggest deviation is they ran 30 on to Oregon, Portland. And there's US 40 and US 50 that went to California. There's Oh, everybody's confused about that. Not everybody, because we've told them. But a lot of people, first of all, a lot of people say, what is that Route 66? And we'd say, no, Route 66 went from Chicago to Santa Monica. There's a place near Chicago where we cross Route 66. Anyway, I suppose I've muddled that more than I've made it clear. I thought it was worth saying again. And my theme is a vision for the future of the Lincoln Highway here in Iowa and Greene County, well, and across the nation. And there's a speaker at our conference that talked about those who want to help you get where you are going. So I've got a list of those people. As you came in, you signed the paper. So you're all going to help me, hopefully. Anyway, the main topic is sort of a vision for the future. And the first, I want to talk about our organization. We have a National Lincoln Highway Association members, people on the board from 13 states. The national organization has that conference once a year. We just got back from it. It was in Joliet.
California next year.
And it'll be in northern, well, Folsom, California next year. Folsom's famous for the Johnny Cash song. And they have a state prison there. We have a magazine that's on the table. Four of those a year. It's a pretty neat magazine. Thank you, Rolf. See, he's already shown that he can help.
The library has them too.
Okay, good. We have a board of directors, one from each state, and then we have several advisory directors, and we have the typical president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. We have quite a few life memberships. It costs $1,000 to be a life member, and so we're pretty proud of the fact that we have 120 some life members. So I guess you should figure out how old you are and whether that would look out to be a good deal or not. And then the national organization has Zoom meetings whenever they need to handle some business. Secondly, we have the state organization. That's our Iowa Lincoln Highway. And Iowa and National are both 501c3 nonprofit organizations. Yeah. The Lincoln Highway crossed 13 counties in Iowa. National organization had 13 states. So that's kind of a coincidence. It worked out pretty good. County councils in each county, CONSUL, which is what the original organization had for representatives. And these were the people that coordinated with the national people like Henry Joy, and would report on the condition of roads, report on about anything that's happening in the towns. Whether the service, I guess, was good or bad, or they might, anyway, that's the job of the councils. We have 4 newsletters a year. State meetings, we have 4 state meetings a year. The next one will be at Youngville, which is by Cedar Rapids. It's in Benton County. Youngville was a rural gas station, which is really important in the early days, and this one has been restored. Really a neat station. It'd be fun if some of you could come to our state meeting. We also have an LLC, the Lincoln Highway Association voted several times not to have property. But the LLC that we have organized can accept property. So right now we have a rundown Canopy gas station in Montour. Montour is by Tama. And it's deteriorating faster each year, but the boys that own it don't want it. And so they said we could have it. And so we're all ready to accept that station. And we'll probably rehab it and maybe keep it. Maybe it'll be turned over to the town. We don't know exactly what the future will be. But I think it'll be a neat project. And then the third organization is a county organization, which is really a pretty informal and loosely knit group of people here in Greene County. And we have the museum and headquarters over at Grand Junction. And we have our garden over there. It's shaped like the United States. Got the Lincoln Highway going through the middle of it. It's been kind of a neat project. And we also have a gazebo in the garden in case any of you want to get married. So we can help you out with a place to get married. And Green Gable Cabin over there. Cabin was part of the Green Gable Cabins here in Jefferson. And that court was disbanded, I believe, in the early 50s, across from the Armory in Jefferson. And one of the cabins went to Bob Owens' backyard, where he used it for a shop for quite a few years. And after he passed away, then we moved it. Well, first we moved it to Quirks, and then we got into a little rhubarb with the city on that, so we took it on over to Grand Junction. It's been a neat project in Grand Junction. Let's see, our Greene County group stays connected through the county historical organization, which has this building. We're not part of that. We're part of that group through Joyce being on the board. And Joyce also attends tourism meetings in Jefferson, so we're connected with some Jefferson groups and also a group in Grand Junction called the Horizons. How am I doing for time?
Keep going.
Okay.
Need to get into your vision here.
Yeah. Okay, my vision is, I want to also mention the Prairie Rivers. It's another group that we are connected with. It has several functions. Their headquarters is at Ames. They're conservation oriented, but they kind of wear two hats. They've accepted the entity that the DOT's got them to do is be the byway coordinator
Or the Heritage City Byway.
for our scenic, our national, we've become a national scenic byway. And that's our connection with DOT. And let's see, say her name. Shelley, stand up, Shelley Slade. She's a byway coordinator who, through Prairie Rivers, works to coordinate the Lincoln Highway National Byway here in Iowa. How'd I do on that?
You did great. You're doing good.
And she's one that is responsible for this exhibit. And I hope some of you can come up and look at it. And also the recording here is kind of neat to use if you're not afraid to use something like that. It won't hurt you. And the lady that was coordinator before Shelley, his name was Jan, and she's the one that was sort of the driving force behind being able to get listed as a national historic byway. So that organization, Prairie Rivers, has been really important for the Lincoln Highway in Iowa. As far as the vision goes, I had trouble putting that together with my vision. I guess it's kind of complicated. So I'll give it a try. But, let's see. What I want to do is try to promote locally and also at the state level and also at the national level. And of course, I can't do that. That's a huge job. That's why I need help. And I got all of you people now to help me. So you've all got jobs. But we definitely need to do some things here in the county. And what I'd like to do is have it so that there could be people come to Greene County and stay a week and enjoy Greene County and all the things that we have to offer here. Not only Lincoln Highway, but that's why I made the list of items that you might find on the highway. And then what we're supposed to do is work on that list and add to it all the manufacturing and commercial things that are going on here. Scranton Manufacturing, I think it's the third largest maker of sanitation equipment, garbage equipment. John Deere, Landis Co-op. We have a bunch of things that people, I think, would be interested in if we were prepared to, if they knew us here and that we would be prepared to work with them to see it. Also, the implement dealer, I think people would maybe especially families with kids, love to go out, be able to go out and sit in one of those big tractors with big combines. And I think, then the Dreyfus over at Grand Junction ethanol plant, everybody talks about ethanol all over the country, and they argue that it's good, and they argue that it's bad. But here they could go to a plant that makes ethanol fuel out of corn. And I think the ethanol fella that Joyce talked to, or they would really be happy to have a family come in or a group come in. But we need to put that list together of all the things there are for people to see and do. And it could be, it's a lot longer than the list I've made. I just started as the west side of Greene County and the list of Lincoln Highway things. But there's just tons of things to do. And it really makes me unhappy and feel like I haven't done my job when I hear about somebody. The bell tower keeps us informed when visitors come to the bell tower. And so they think, when Bob Owens was at the bell tower, he made sure they knew Scranton Junction around the Lincoln Highway, and that you could see the highway going out of town from the bell tower. When they come in from the east or the west and go to Jefferson, because Jefferson's doing a lot better job of promoting themselves than we are promoting the Lincoln Highway. So they go right by on New 30 and don't get to start seeing anything in eastern Greene County, or they come from the west. On the other hand, they also come to our place, and they come over, they go from Jefferson out on New Highway 30, drive over to Grand Junction, and come into Junction. They don't take the old road. And it really, that really what bothers me. When we got home from the conference, we had a letter that a person had given us, and I'll just take me a minute to read it. It's from a lady at Mechanicsville, Iowa. How many know where Mechanicsville, Iowa is? Okay, there's a few of you. It's in Cedar County. And it says, in the future, we would like to have the approval to use the Lincoln Highway logo for such things as t-shirts, street banners, street painting in the middle of the street, possibly mugs, sidewalk painting, paint or chalk, and fundraising materials for our town, as we are on the original Lincoln Highway, and would like to make Mechanicsville part of the Lincoln Highway experience. So, kind of in one sentence, that's their future vision for the town. It says there, their history goes back to 1836 with the Lincoln Highway going through in the early 1900s. They're proud of our town and are starting a history center to remember the past and build for the future. The Lincoln Highway is part of our past, and we want it to remain our future. So, really neat letter. And I'm not in charge of whether they can use the logo or not, but it was fun to get the letter. Another thing that Shelley and I talked about, I think we'll have it organized nice to happen next year is to be pole painting across the county. So we'd have a group of, I don't know, a dozen poles with the Lincoln Highway logo on them. We did it quite a few years ago, but they changed a lot of the poles or else the paint was faded. It was really a neat project and got a lot of people involved. And we have an official pole painting manual now. John Fitzsimmons from Boone is our official Lincoln Highway artist. And he organized the pole painting tips. So, some of you will be asked to climb the ladder and paint the poles. Bob Owens kept the one across the street from him pretty well spiffed up through the years. How many of you have noticed that pole being painted? And that's an example of a really good one. I think they've only changed the pole once, so he just had to start once and keep that up to snuff. And then they changed the pole, so he had to do another pole painting exercise. I think, in a way, it was one of the most successful projects in the state. We had a lot of poles painted clear across Iowa. And our goal, I think, Shelley and I talked about possibly even having a pole painting day, pole painting holiday, and painting everybody doing their poles in one day all across Iowa. Every town would be organized, so, or every county would be organized so they'll paint the poles on the same day. I don't know if we can get that done. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's totally doable. And I'd love to see, we talked about doing, you know, maybe a youth group, maybe, you know, some high school kids, maybe there are certain clubs. I know, for example, this year in Calamus, over in Clinton County, the FFA got a grant from Keep Iowa Beautiful to paint the poles through Calamus. And so they worked together with the Lincoln Highway Association to learn how to do it. And, you know, it's something that helps with that kind of identification of, you know, we are a Lincoln Highway town. And it would just be super fun, wouldn't it, to have the Lincoln Highway across Iowa painted.
Well, surely you've got started on that, haven't you?
I haven't talked to I think there was a partnership with Diamond Vogel, and so we'll see about having a conversation about that, yeah.
And also, I understand that people are telling us when they talk to Alliant about painting the logo on their poles, Alliant
Yeah.
said we're not letting anybody paint on our poles.
Have to get
So we gotta
permission.
talk to another person about we need to have places like Casey's and Sparky's Come and Go, which is in some of the other counties. We need to have information at those places. So we need to figure out who's working at those places and where they can put information so that travelers coming in can find information about our county. And we need to work with the other counties so we can send people on from Greene County, say Boone County, and then they can ride the train and do all the things that are in Boone County.
Why when you're closing, why don't you tell them about the Turkey site, east of Grand Junction?
East of Grand Junction, we have an interpretive site. And that's for visitors, and we still don't have the interpretive site complete, and we still don't have the signage complete for that. We're working on it. We need to partner really good with the school, because they've got an artist that does wonderful murals, and we'd like to do some Lincoln Highway murals. Of course, the county is in charge of the roads, so we need to be working with the county. We need help doing that. And then I formed the list for the West Green County section and then the Danger Hill section. And I need to have you take the list with you and then put in all the things that you can think of for a visitor to see. And I think on the west section, there's a bridge, the three-arch marsh bridge in Lake City. And it's a beautiful bridge. Marsh is a tremendous bridge builder. And so one of the things that we could talk about with the visitors is building the bridges, building those bridges. And I think Lake City's three-span bridge is just a little ways outside of Greene County to the north. I think we should use, I don't know what the width of our corridor should be, but I think we can push a little go outside of Greene County.
Before you're done, I have a couple questions. Questions?
I'm just about done. I need my picture of the three-arch bridge. Anyway, it's around somewhere. So. Yeah. This is a three-arch marsh arch bridge. It'll be up here when I take a look at it.
And of course, the Eureka is also a marsh arch bridge.
And then the bridge just outside of Greene County, over in Boone County, is a single arch, marsh arch bridge. You get both above arches, above the bridge arches, which are the rainbow bridges, and then below the bridge arches, which is like the Eureka Bridge. Okay,
Question.
Linda.
I happen to live on the Lincoln Highway, and I know because Joyce came out and put a plaque on the pole in front of the house. And I often go to the west and go across the bridge before Danger Hill and go for a walk down in there. But anyway, you have a point here, Old Danger Hill walking trail. Are you suggesting something there?
Yeah, the original road up Danger Hill is a little different than Danger Hill today. And I was counting on Ed Goes to help me with that, because he knew where it was. It was farther north on that road as you went towards the tunnel. You kind of went up in one of those little valleys to the north.
So it was before you came to the tunnel?
I think so.
Okay.
If we start at the top, if we go into Bruce Bannister's property, that used to be Bill McGregor's. I think I'd get started at the top, probably be able to follow it down. And hopefully we can mark it. And have a good.
First the bulldozer goes through.
But what are you suggesting about a walking trail? What type of trail?
Just a path
A path?
that was marked, and that we knew the owner wasn't going to object. But it's a good idea of, something that would need to be expanded and explained.
And then you suggest Dangerville Prairie and wetland. Where is that area?
Well, that's east, let's see, west of the bridge and to the south. Yeah. Something else we need to find out more about what the rules are for being on that website. Prairie, let's see, Perkins Prairie. Is anybody here from the Perkins family? Okay. That's pretty much controlled by county conservation. And in talks with the Perkins family, they would welcome to explore that. It's just off the Seven Hills Road.
Bob, what agency controls the interpretive site over by east of Grand Junction?
I would say that that's Greene County roads of Greene County Conservation. Greene County Conservation takes care of it. Does the mowing and so forth.
The Lincoln Highway Association designed it, but when we started that, we had to go to the IDOT, and they said, we own that, and the Lions Club planted the trees there, but we actually own it. So if you make it into an interpretive site, it has to be a government agency that will keep that in government name. So the county then agreed to, they can keep it following. They're the county.
So what's already out there at that area of the interpretive site? Is there anything already out there?
There's a 1915 bridge, there's a 1924 bridge, and there's a new bridge put in how many years ago. So those three bridges are interpreted, plus the railroad goes by there. It also interprets, it
has some vertical and horizontal graph materials that talk about for each decade, how many miles of paved road we had, how many, what was our population, how many cars were in Greene County.
And the great big deal is supposed to be population. And you see the population of Greene County hasn't grown.
So there's already a building out there that houses these things, or
No.
they're outside?
You just need to take a little road trip and go out there, and it'll take you an hour to read all the signs.
Well, I know I haven't, because I only moved here December 30th last year.
I need to watch the signs.
Okay. I guess that's all, unless Joyce wants to come up and correct anything I said. Thank you. There we go.
When Eisenhower came through on the 1919, I'm wondering whether that had an influence on him in terms of when he got to be president, in terms of developing the interstate highway system because of the route of Highway 30 going from one coast to the other. I wonder if that was in his mind at all.
So I know it was because through the years, after 1926, when it became part of the federal highway system, there were attempts by Congress to create a system of roads that went from east to west and north to south across the country. And they'd have these plans, and they passed some legislation, but those projects never got funded. And when Eisenhower came in to be president, he was able to pull things together and get the funding. And I just know that he was influenced by that trip, his early trip across the country. There's a book called Big Roads by an author named Swift, and it talks about that. It's a really neat book. It talks about all the frustration through the years of having people wanting these roads and Congress voting for the roads but never getting together on the funding. Just like today.
I have read because of his military background, he realized that we did not have a central road to get from one end of the coast to the other. And that was in his mind that if our country got attacked, we needed to have a central highway.
And that was the purpose, I think, that they sent this out here. I'm not going to be able to get the figures right. They had like 120 people, military people. They had like 50 trucks, which they lost about 30 of them. They ruined about 10 bridges because the road just wasn't good enough. But that's exactly why they did it, because they needed to find out if we had a war, could they get people from New York City to the West Coast. And so you use this road as kind of an example. And I think, in the end, Eisenhower reported back, and the rest of them reported back, that we're in dire straits. You can't get across this. We've ruined stuff. They didn't lose any men, but they lost a lot of equipment. They ruined bridges. It took them a long time. They got stuck all the time. Of course, roads would develop after that, but they certainly at that time did not have the ability to transport hundreds of thousands of men and equipment.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Let me direct this question to a guest. This is a little unusual. Darcy Malsby is one of Iowa's leading active historians, is an author writing about Iowa historic topics all the time. Several books have been done, several more are planned, I think. But don't you have one in the works on the Lincoln Highway, don't you? Can you update us on that?
Yeah, it's coming out October 10th, and it is exclusively about the history of the Lincoln Highway in Iowa. So I traveled the whole route, and I tell in-depth stories of, it's kind of like a travel guide history book, kind of like the things you were talking about, Bob. Why would anyone want to come here and see this stuff? And we cover everything from the history here in Greene County to the moss markers over by Scranton. Just lots of fun stories. So October, it's coming.
Great, thank you. What's the name of it?
The Lincoln Highway in Iowa, A History.
Another question, please.
Charlie, do you have any other comments?
I think that's good for now. Yeah, but I can talk to people afterwards if they have questions.
Again, if you want to go through this again, sit up here and listen to some of the stories told, please do. So I'm going to be here. You might even leave today. We don't know.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Is this a byway? Is it whatever you were talking about, a byway?
The scenic byway.
Yeah.
It's a National Scenic Heritage Byway. We don't claim to be the most scenic, although I think that's arguable. And we started out probably Well, before Illinois got their National Scenic Byway, we were trying to get Iowa to be the first National Scenic Byway. But we had somebody in the DOT department, that's why I'm speaking, because I still discuss with that person who's long gone. And as soon as that person left, right away we got working on becoming a National Scenic Heritage Byway. She said, well, you're not scenic. We said, well, under the Scenic Byway program, there's a Heritage Byway. That's what we want to be. So there's only 3 states across the 13 that are a scenic byway, and that's Illinois and Iowa and Nebraska.
Another question, please.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. There's a white pole road on Old Highway 6 near Dexter. And you might look into that, see if there's something you can do.
Highway 6 also goes through where we just got home from. They have an organization, and they just need to work harder to get organized. It takes a lot of work, volunteers, and they, most people know where the White Pole Road is in Iowa, right? Highway 6.
Is there a book on the white pole?
Yes, there's a book.
I have it too.
So the first time I saw those white poles, I thought, oh, the DOT marked those so the snowplows could see where not to go. The white lines are like 10 feet
They're
up.
marked in black, which wouldn't help them see.
Yeah, that's right. Jet.
And Bob may have mentioned this, but I may not have caught it. Painting poles and logos on the poles, how many poles would you anticipate in Greene County?
Somewhere between probably 15 or 20.
I think that's wrong.
Am I wrong?
We're going to have a correction here, I think. Oh, that's a lot, 15 or 20?
No.
So you're not going to paint every pole?
No.
No, not going to paint every pole. 1 mile. So it's 24 miles across the county.
30.
I disagree with you, it's 24.
24 miles, but we'll have half of them painted. How's that? We're not going to do this.
I think that decision is yet to be made.
How many, Shelley?
Well, let's see, how many miles do we have across?
24.
24, and I think originally the idea was to have one every mile, but as we pointed out, sometimes there are jogs in the road, and that's where you need, the purpose of the pole is to say, okay, go this direction, right? Just like the Boy Scout markers, what we call the Boy Scout markers.
Boy Scout markers. This is my favorite story. When I give tours and talk about the Lincoln Highway, I love this story, and you guys probably know it anyway, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So, late November of 1928, all the Boy Scout troops along the Lincoln Highway crossed from New York to California on a Saturday morning, put in over 4,000 markers, similar to the cement marker we have by Sling and Ross's funeral home. So they weigh like 300 pounds, I'm guessing.
Pretty close.
Too much for a 9-year-old Boy Scout to put up by himself. But on a Saturday morning, all 4,000 markers were put up across the United States. I just think that's an amazing story.
You're talking about that marker right there.
This marker, except, and this is 400 pounds, look how strong I am. It's exactly that size, except it is weigh about several hundred pounds. It's big, and I'm sure obviously they had to dig holes down 2 foot to put them in, and I just think that's an amazing story. Okay. Yes?
Well, since it's such an amazing story, why don't you get the Boy Scouts, especially the ones who are the Eagle Scouts, to make the...
Paint it. There's not many Eagle Scouts, but there are Boy Scouts.
That's one of the Eagle Scouts.
And one of the Eagle Scouts, yes. Yes, that's true. I don't have time for 5 more questions.
That was a good example of how that National Lincoln Highway Organization operator. First they thought that they could probably almost do the road across the country themselves. And then they realized that their job was to promote the towns and counties and townships to improve their road across the county. And then the counties, everything was improved across the state.
Just how big is the state and national fire numbers of people in the organization?
National's about probably 900. And some states just have a few. So Wyoming claims that they, per person, they have the largest organization.
Iowa used to have the largest membership, and now California does, by only 11 people.
That's another one of my vision, is to get back on top of California. So we need national members.
Okay, come on. Several years ago, Karen and I took a bus trip to Washington, D.C. and to Gettysburg and Antietam. And it was fascinating. I really enjoyed Gettysburg. And then we looked up, and our tour guide had us look up, and Gettysburg is on Highway 30. So, Ausberger, is that part of the Lincoln Highway or not?
Oh, yes. First conference that we went to in Bedford, Pennsylvania in 1992, we went to Gettysburg. And they gave us quite an extensive talk about the Lincoln Highway going through Gettysburg and showed where Abraham Lincoln gave his speech, Gettysburg speech. And yeah, that's why it's hard to choose pictures from each state. Every state's got something unique. And we have a lot of people from other countries that come over here. We had somebody from the Netherlands come do a filming of Bob and I, 2 or 3 weeks ago. We've had Norwegians come. They had a big tour. They shipped cars over here. The classic car people love the Lincoln Highway. I don't know if every once in a while you see a group of cars go through. They just did one going to the conference in Joliet, only that they started in New York, so they didn't get through Jefferson. But in 2025, they're going to do another conference, and they're going to come through Jefferson. So we'll give you a heads up. And it's mostly classic cars that go, but you can go with any car you want.
Out of my own ignorance, why is Lincoln associated with the Lincoln Highway? Why is the Lincoln Highway named the Lincoln Highway?
Patriotism.
Because Lincoln was long before Lincoln had anything to do with
They
it,
wanted
right?
to bring the country together patriotically and
Thought it would be free, or the highway would be free for people to travel on. They use that as a promotion, the Lincoln Highway Association. Someone suggested they call it the Coast to Coast Rock Highway. They said, well, that doesn't sound very good. Doesn't sound very exciting.
Okay? One more. Carol?
I just want to make a statement, more than a question. But the old Lincoln Highway, what we didn't talk about was a lot of this direction, and the bridges narrow, all of this stuff would have had to be redone. And it went through Grand Junction, Jefferson, Scranton, the towns. And they needed some new things done to it to get it to be what it is today in the modern world. To increase the bridge sizes and it's just progress that they have done.
And there's four different routes. 4 different routes. This is number 1 right here. This is the original route. Of course, it isn't the original cover.
Yeah.
New 30 is number 4. And so you can got time, when I went to the West Coast about 3 or 4 years ago, I tried to take the oldest route there was. And in Nebraska, it goes, the oldest route goes like this, along the Platte River. Gravel roads along the Platte. So I did that for a couple miles and I was enough of that.
So that's
But also,
progress.
also, as you be driving along, and I'm thinking Nebraska someplace, you look about 50 feet that way, and there's a gravel road right there, maybe a bridge once up, so you, that was number one. And then in Wyoming, or Utah or someplace, they've laid Interstate 80 on top of Lincoln Way. So you are going the route, but you're certainly not going on the original pavement.
I'll point out, we have a picture right here of the Lincoln Highway going on the south side of the square in Jefferson. And if you look at the roadway, one thing that struck me is how would you get down the street if you lived in Jefferson after a hard rain? And you were even in a horse and buggy or in a car, that would be rather difficult. Does anyone know when that was paved?
Well,
Through
Greene
Jefferson?
County was the first county in Iowa to have completely paved.
Right.
And I don't know what year that was, sorry. 24? 24. You know, when I initially tried to introduce these guys, I said something about the farmers making money. And the farmers made a lot of money because it was all mud roads back then. People try to drive this with their cars, and they get stuck, and the farmers would come out with their horses and pull them out and make some money. So they were making money off the Lincoln Highway back then.
One more pitch for preservation, and probably we need to stop it. Every state, every county has something unique to it, and you try to keep that unique, whether it's a gas station or a statue or an older Victorian home. You just have to keep some of the older things for people to come see. They don't want to see what you can see in any place along the Lincoln Highway, or any highway. Try to keep some good stuff for them to see. I mean, they come here, you know, probably to see the Mahaney Tower, but there's more things to see along the way. The people on the Lincoln Highway, in fact, someone last week, 2 weeks ago, said they hadn't seen the Mahaney Tower. How can you come through Jefferson without seeing the Mahaney Tower?
Roger. I don't know if everyone knows the history of this space they're sitting in.
So this building, if we got time again, this building was originally what I call a truck stop. There's a picture of the office door, but this was wide open. There were no walls here. There were just corner pillars. And so the cars would pull right in through here to get their gas. And there was a truck stop, gas station, and then in the back, they're covered up now, but there were big garage doors on the side, and trucks would pull in that way to get their oil changed. So this is what I consider one of the original truck stops. And again, it's on Lincoln Highway, and I always tell people there were 11 gas stations on Lincoln Highway between the city limits, on the highway in the 20s. So that was a lot of gas stations. So here's a picture. This is a picture. This is taken from Casey's, John's over here, and this is the first Jefferson police car that was purchased. A picture taken of it. So you can see the opening of the, maybe you can't, but the opening of the walls, and the cars would just drive right in here. Okay. Oh, one more thing.
Yeah, I think Jefferson originally, around the square anyway, paved with asphalt. It didn't work out very well. So I'm guessing that they switched to concrete in 1920 when the first sections of the Lincoln Highway were paved in Greene County. So, and that's your question, I'm guessing it would have been in 1920. Concrete.
Oh, one more question.
I was just going to say the DOT recommends for covering all of the Lincoln Highway on using Portland cement because that was the original material. So that's considered. They still have standards, and the secondary roads engineers try to follow those standards, many of them, for maintaining the Lincoln Highway.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming. Margaret, when's our next program?
July 24th with you.
Ooh, be here or be square. Bring your own lunch. Thank you very much. Thank you.